I can see I'm live. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Zach F1 channel. And in today's, well, I say video, we are live for the final thoughts going into F1 Fantasy. So I made my 4-minute video yesterday. I don't know how many, did I get to any comments? I don't think I got to any of the comments on that video. But it was very self-explanatory. The summary was clear. I didn't really give like a lot of reasons, but with those videos it's more of like a summary. So I go boom boom boom, this is what's happening, this is what's happening. I didn't have Yuki Tsunoda starting from the back of the grid, so that's very much something to be looking out for. But yeah, let me just quickly get up you guys on the chat, and then we'll start all of this, because there's two teams I'm thinking of, and neither of them have anything to do with my team one that my team looks like right now. So I mean, it's good, but let me get over to the chat and see what everyone's saying. I have seen some people ask on Twitter for help as well, so if you come into the chat or you see the chats, then remind me to go look at that, because I just ran out of time to basically do all of that stuff. Hello everyone, how you doing? Hey Biblical, how you doing? Yes, so I'll answer your question and then I'll show what my team's sort of going to look like. So my current team, 116.9 million. Free transfers: Norris, Hulkenberg, Tsunoda, Gasly, Sargent. What would I recommend? With the money you got, it's definitely got to be a Verstappen, a Verstappen, McLaren, Red Bull build. So Norris out, Verstappen in. Gasly down to someone like Zhou to get that money there. And then a few of your cheap other drivers down, because I don't know who your constructors are. But Fernando, that's what I would focus on. Because from what we've seen, Verstappen should be doing well. I don't think he's going to win, but a third or fourth is good enough with the quali points and everything all together. Osin, #21 world. Oh, good shit, man. Good on ya. I'm thinking of Ferrari in, but Ferrari? What? I know they looked all right, but when in a situation like this, I actually think it's looking like both Mercedes and Ferrari we don't want to have, because at this point, I generally think that if Perez does no screw ups, which would be quite hard for Perez, it very much is looking like McLaren and Red Bull are the only good, consistent constructors we've got at the minute. Adam, how you doing, man? Hopefully your show goes all good as well. Yeah, a lot of stuff to figure out. Thank you very much. Good luck to your team as well, man. So, before I answer any more questions, I do just want to show the two teams that could occur. So, if I want to play it safe, the safe option is to not worry too much about Mercedes as the constructor, but bring in Norris, basically triple McLaren with Mercedes. Now, I'm not actually the happiest about using this team, and that's where I genuinely do think it's the situation. I think we're in a situation where I'm most likely going to be using the -10 to bring in Verstappen and Red Bull, and then not even Kevin Magnussen anymore, Yuki Tsunoda, because obviously he's starting at the back of the grid. And then we have, do you think Ricciardo replaces Red Bull after after this race? His price will increase, or will it stay what it is now / after this race? So I think if anyone ever does replace Perez in that Red Bull, I don't really know how they would do that. Potentially, they would just do a switch where Tsunoda would go up to whatever Perez's price is, and Perez would go down to Tsunoda's price, or Ricciardo. But I still think Perez isn't going for a while, because I think he'll actually have a decent race this weekend. Yes, hello everyone, hello. Right. Pay for extra change to Verstappen Red Bull team. Yeah, so We'll have to do 3 changes. Yeah, so I think the amount of points we're going to get this weekend, I'm most likely also going to be minus 10ing the next week after that as well. So I would not be surprised at all if I take a minus 10 this week and a minus 10 the other week. But that's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. And Natalie, can you give my daughter Nika a happy birthday? Happy birthday, Nika. I hope you have a great 8th birthday. Well, on Tuesday. Hopefully you're doing something nice. And yeah, I hope it's a great birthday. And then Biblical asks, tough choices ahead. Decided to go with Piastri, Russell, Gasly, Hulkenberg, Sargent with Red Bull and McLaren. I see. On a budget of 123.8 million. Biblical. No problem, Natalie. That's all good. No problem. I'm glad I could help. Biblical. I always get so blown out of the water about how much budget you have. Red Bull and McLaren. Yes, that's the way to go. Piastri times 2 Russell. I also like. Also, I've just noticed I need to move this about. Yeah. There we go. That's a bit more like it. Where's the chat gone? There it is. Because Michael, what a lad. He's just given a beautiful chat. Thank you very much for the $5. Yes. Who brought this up? Because I'm going to give you... let me bring over my Twitter. I'm going to give... Yeah, Bearded Beast was the guy who brought up this idea. And we were all thinking about it. And we all think it's a good idea, but... it's hard to get to that situation. So for me, I could do something similar. I'll show how I would do it, but this is what where is it? Where's Bearded? Was it Leapers? Oh, okay. So I found out about it from... Oh, yes. It's right in front of me. Thank you very much, Michael. I was literally like giving Bearded all of this stuff, and it literally says in front of me, yep, Leapers Frog literally said it. Right, so Leapers won, the top dog in our league. He's the top dog in the world, so he knows his stuff. Where did they talk about it? Yeah, so actually Michael's got a good show of what it would look like. So if you did with something like that, you could easily have the Piastri final fix to Verstappen, and the plan is hopefully that the budget goes up 1 million and you get the Verstappen points. It's a great option, and the way I could do something like that is, because I still really want Red Bull as a constructor, that's the thing, is still taking the minus 10, which I'm not too happy about, but it would be with the Red Bull to the Piastri, because then I'd have to change someone here, which basically is going to Tsunoda. And then it's good because then if it does work out, then you can have the value to get back to your normal team, and you could easily just 1-2 Tsunoda and Red Bull back out. It depends how much money you want, because for me, I'm a little bit on the fence about it, because budget-wise, if Verstappen does really well this weekend, I don't think Piastri gets another 1 million increase. Yes, thank you very much. I need to plug that in. Give me a second. Yeah, Bearded. Yeah, I just said it was leave us free hit final fix strategy. But I think for certain I will be going with the McLaren Red Bull team at least, because Mercedes and Ferrari look like they're going to be having a little ding dong for 3rd to 6th, and I don't trust either one of them. Mercedes in the wets are normally good, so I would still be with Mercedes, also just because it's more likely for Mercedes to be better in the next race. And then if you have Ferrari in your team this week, you're going to have a whole nightmare getting them out the next weekend. Let me show up my team again as well. Actually, no, let's not show my team. Let's get on to... Oh, for God's sake, I'm not logged in. I don't think I need to be logged in for Team Calculator. I do not. I want to show what they're thinking for now. Because obviously we haven't had the full update, the FP3 updates. But let's just put in 120 million. Could be worth having both Red Bull drivers for a potential budget increase if Perez price does swap. Yeah, it could be something like that. I think F1 Fantasy themselves will come out and say exactly how it would go down, because obviously who's going to be going up, who's going to be going down. My money would be on Tsunoda, so if everyone did have Tsunoda and he was at Red Bull for 10.4 million, it's a no-brainer, isn't it? And I think that would be one of the times where it would break the game. If we could bring in a Red Bull driver for 10.4 million, you would be seeing us with teams like Norris, Piastri, and Tsunoda in the Red Bull. With McLaren and Mercedes, ridiculous teams. Then we'll be going back to what our teams were looking like in 2023 when Aston Martin looked good. Oh, is this the ones for? It is, my bad. I wasn't reading the full thing. Perfect, they were proper quick with this. So yeah, like I thought, they were suggesting Verstappen's going to do well. Even with 120 million budget, I think 125 is where they'd probably suggest having Verstappen and another driver. But it is Red Bull and McLaren. Very much in it. In a way, but useless. Yeah, I was gonna say, if anyone did watch FP3, all we learned is Stroll can't drive, because, well, we already knew that, and apparently, if we take that with context, Gasly's gonna be on the podium. But right, yes. Let me get down to the things. When you use Final Fix, how does the increased value work? Is it for the first or second driver? So, yeah, let's have a quick rundown of all of this. So, Final Fix here. I don't know why I'm here. I want to go to the game rules. So, I'll explain with the game rules there if anyone wants it as well. You can change one driver, and when you Final Fix, you have that whatever driver you've originally had. Let's say Piastri. You get their qualifying points. Then you get rid of them, you bring in, let's say, Verstappen, like people will be doing, and then you get their points for the race. Now, if it's the 2 times driver on Piastri, then that's when you get the 2 times put onto Verstappen. Then, after the race, it's very much like Limitless, where it reverts back to your original team, and that's why people are talking about the budgets with Piastri potentially getting a 1 million increase, but you don't actually have to have Piastri in your team. But then the issue I also have, which is sort of like a paradox, is if Piastri gets enough points to get a 1 million increase, he's probably similar to points on Verstappen, and then it's probably a bit of a waste of a Final Fix. But again, Final Fix is such a hard chip to get right. it's a safe bet to be using it then. So there's a lot of thinking to go into it for now. Right. But they won't do that. They would X out Perez and have Yuki as a new expensive asset. Yeah, 100%. I think they could even do it where they potentially could take Tsunoda out of your team, put however much he was in for. Let's say he was 10.4 million, say going into next week, and you just have like one empty driver seat with an extra, with the 10.4 million that you would have in there, and then they change his price. There's a lot of ways they could do it, and I'm just hoping they do not screw it up. But again, also at the same time, I don't think Perez is losing his seat just yet. And sort of as a McLaren fan, I'm kind of hoping he doesn't lose his seat now. Actually, God, this will be the first poll of the day. Let's ask, will Perez keep his seat going into the Dutch GP? Yes or no? My thinking is yes, just because they've been so lenient on him already. I think they're really trying to get Perez to stay there, and I don't know why when they've got such better talent elsewhere. I am a big fan of Tsunoda, so it does help. Should I change Piastri plus Norris to Verstappen? Memenza, it really depends on what it takes to get there. If you're taking a -10, because I actually think it is worth the -10 to go over to a team like that. But Verstappen has to be getting all the points. So I believe someone did mention, did Verstappen win Driver of the Day? He most likely did. Which was the race where he came from P14 to P1? I believe that was that last season? Or the season before? No, last season he did start further down, but it was P6 or something. Yeah, he would have won the Driver of the Day last season and in 2022. The issue is that McLaren are a lot faster. Mercedes are a lot faster. Ferrari, yeah, not really. But for Verstappen to get Driver of the Day, he needs to be overtaking one of the McLarens in first and second. So he needs to be at least second place. And I don't think he's getting there. Yeah, P6 last year. Yeah, I thought so. So, Joda's asking, I have Norris, Gasly, Hulkenberg, Albon, Zhou, and Red Bull McLaren for 117.9 million and free transfers. What should I do? Joda, you're in actually a really nice position at the minute. Because you've got that 117.9 million budget and you're already at Red Bull McLaren, all you've got to do is figure out how to get from Norris to Verstappen. So that's most likely downgrading Gasly to a Bottas or a Gasly to a Sargent and Norris up to a Verstappen. That's all you really need to do, and then you keep one transfer, and then you're ready to go for Zandvoort with free transfers, and then you can revert back to a normal team when Verstappen doesn't have a 10-place grid penalty, which would be the 2 premium drivers again. Or again, if Red Bull look good afterwards, then you're in a good position to move over to them as well. Perez seat on fire. Boost incoming podium confirmed. That's what I'm saying. I generally do think with Mercedes not looking happy, Ferrari not looking happy, this is the chance for Perez to get a top 5 again. Genuinely, I would be a bit... If he can't get a top 8 in a race like this is when you really... That's when I'd be pissed off when he doesn't get... sacked after it. But 58% of you are saying yes, and 42% of you are saying no. I agree. I do agree that Perez will keep his seat. And why no Tsunoda? Doesn't he have a penalty? So, oh yeah, my bad. For anyone joining in, let me show you what my team's most likely going to look like, because I'm in a predicament where you've got the final fix, my bad. I keep on saying free hit. It's because FPL's just been released and they got rid of that and it's confusing my brain. Final fix. For me, I would have to get in Piastri and then... Where's the boy? Red Bull. So for me, it doesn't really change much, because even if Piastri got the 1 million increase, which I don't think he will get, next weekend I'll still have to take the -10. So is it worth the free hit? Is it worth the final fix? Not for me, but 100% it would for anyone else. But let's get back to what my team would look like just end of. For the geezer asking why not Tsunoda? Yeah, Tsunoda I will have, because I was going to bring in Magnussen with this team, as you could afford him, but now it will most likely be Tsunoda, Red Bull. So I would be very happy with this team as well. Even with a -10, you recover that -10, hopefully with Yuki's points, and then Verstappen does what Verstappen does and hopefully gets a top 3 finish. Top 4 I'd be happy with. What about Mercedes that switched back to the previous 4? Could they be back to the previous weekend's race pace? Yes. So I did hear that they were changing their floor. I'm hoping it does improve their race pace, but... The issue with Mercedes is, we saw in Hungary, Verstappen was a lot faster than Mercedes. So, if it's similar race pace at a track that you can overtake, Verstappen will still overtake the Mercedes. And on Verstappen's points alone, that will probably get you close enough to Mercedes Constructor points. And then you're in that dangerous zone where fastest pit stops matter a lot. And Red Bull normally get them. Let's have a look at the fastest pit stop points again for... I don't think they show them, do they? But you'll see most weekends, Red Bull get a lot more than you'd think they would. No, hang on. So get rid of that. Get rid of that. Let's just look at the fastest pit stop points. Here we go. And look at Red Bull's fastest pit stops. It's almost every weekend. And when Verstappen's starting with a 10-place grid penalty, he will be getting Red Bull a lot of points. Add on an extra 10 points to that, and you're at Mercedes points already without even thinking about Perez's points, even if he has a stinker. Does Max take the penalty for this week or not? Yeah, so Max is taking a penalty 100%. And there was a lot of talk if he took the engine out because it would have been raining. I was watching a debrief and Horner said the engine's still in there, so he's still got a lot of power. Ricky, yeah, from the sounds of it, hi mate. From the sounds of it, most people are revving to go with Max. The issue is, and here's the thing, if Norris still gets driver of the day, all of this jazz, then it will be hard. Verstappen has to get more than 50 points. But my thinking is, Verstappen needs to get to a top 3, top 4 finish. And when you're going through the field, we saw it last weekend with Russell. Hang on, I need to show everyone here. We saw it with Russell. Let me show you the fastest lap points, because these are also crucial. Look who gets fastest lap, okay? Sainz. No, let's start with Russell. Russell, leading through the pack, behind everyone, he had a massive gap to the next person, pitted the final few laps, got fastest lap because he was having a recovery race. Sainz, not really a recovery race, but again, no one behind him, pits on the final few laps, fastest lap. Alonso, again. Norris, not really. That one was, nah. But you see a lot of a trend, again, Hamilton and Monaco, fastest lap because of that. You see a lot of the trends where if you've got the gap, you go for the pit stop, get the fastest lap. And I do think that Verstappen will be in a situation where he's going to probably not catch up to the McLarens, but from 3rd or 4th, have like a 20 to 30 second gap. And if he has that, those 10 points, plus the overtaking points, plus the qualifying points, plus just his race overall points, position gain points, it could be 60 points, 60 plus points, which is very good. Very, very good. But that's also the issue where with the final fix stuff, if Verstappen gets over 60 points this weekend, there's no chance that a driver like Piastri, even on like a 35-point race weekend, if he does a really nice weekend, is getting a 1 million increase. And that's where I have the issue with it all. Hi, Zach. Want to keep triple McLaren, but it would mean having to have Sargent, Gasly, Hulk. Should I keep Piastri or go for Russell along with Norris and 4 middle? So 100%, I think, if you are not feeling confident about the single premium with Verstappen, because obviously that is a lot to ask, the only reason I want to do it is because I want Red Bull as a constructor over everything. Actually, not McLaren, but you know what I mean, over Mercedes or Ferrari. And the issue is, if you're not going for that, triple McLaren is a must. From the looks of things, it's going to be Norris Piastri or Piastri and Norris, 1st and 2nd. And I don't think Mercedes or Ferrari are going to get anywhere close. And I would take even qualifying to an extent with a pinch of salt, because if it is raining with Mercedes' old floor, like someone, I can't remember who mentioned it, someone mentioned, Mercedes probably will be pretty quick. But again, come into the race, if it's anything like Hungary, if it's anything like any other all the races before, they sort of lose it a little bit when it's a bit dry. And that's where we have issues, because on a normal track, you could probably defend quite a bit. Spa, there's no defending. You get overtaken. That's it. That is literally it. You get some good side-by-side battles, but normally overtakes, there's so many places to overtake that it's too easy. Hi Nico. I missed your last week deadline stream. Oh, no problem, mate. I didn't actually have one last week. I was still on holiday. But yes, I have McLaren, Red Bull, Norris, Magnussen, Hulkenberg, Gasly, Sargent, 3 swaps. Don't know what to do. So if you're already in a position where, you've got Red Bull, McLaren, and you've only got one premium driver, you go for Verstappen. So I would recommend getting rid of Norris, bringing in Verstappen, and then probably getting rid of my least favourite driver out of Hulkenberg and Gasly would probably be Gasly. And you drop him down to an Albon if that's got enough money, or you drop him down to a Zhou, and then with Hulkenberg you drop him down to a Bottas, and then you bring in Verstappen. I'm new to F1. What is the tyre strategy in Belgium? Oh, good question, actually. Normally, they don't want to do too many... let's see what it was last year, because I actually can't remember what their tyre strategy was last year. I don't know why it was zoomed in so much. How many pit stops did they do? I forgot it was a sprint race weekend last time. From the looks of things, most people was a two-stopper. Most was a two-stopper, some three stops, but I believe from the looks of things, one of them was to get fastest lap, 100%, and Sargent and Albon, yeah. I mean, typical Williams masterclass. Right, let me zoom this in as well. My face isn't covering it. No, it's not. Good stuff. Okay, Verstappen will need to be going for the fastest lap. He's going to need every point this year, 100%. And that's why I think that's where it gets juicy, because if Verstappen doesn't get fastest lap, he's going to finish on similar points to Norris or Verstappen, whoever comes first place. But if he gets fastest lap, he's finishing 15, 20 points above them. Whoa, which I'm really excited about. Fantasy tools. Yeah, I know. I'm so excited for the pictures. Oh, they're going to look beautiful. Fantasy tools is full of Ferrari builds. Should we really be considering? Here's the thing. Human-wise, because obviously theirs goes off FP3 results. If you watched FP3, nothing happened in it. Stroll crashed. That was game over. So that's why they'll probably be going for a lot more Ferrari, because we've seen an FP2 Ferrari actually looked okay. But again, a team like this, yeah, even at 110 million, I would just stick with Mercedes, because again, with similar things like that, if you're not going full out points, because you know you're not going to get the max points from Ferrari, you know you're not going to get the max points from Mercedes, then you've got to think long term. And that's where you think, okay, well, who's going to probably be quicker in Netherlands? And it's probably going to be Mercedes. We saw in Hungary, Hamilton looked pretty good. It's probably going to be Mercedes. And that's where you'd be, okay, if I lose 5 points this weekend, but then it means I've got 3 free transfers going into Netherlands, and I'm trying to build a budget here. If you're trying to build budget, having 3 free transfers to your cheap drivers is really necessary. So, again, that's why I don't think Ferrari's worth it. They're not the best option, and the best 2 options 100% are Red Bull, McLaren. That's the safest thing I can actually say this weekend, which actually feels great to say, because when was the last time... Actually, no, yeah, there's always a little bit of me that's like, what's going to be better, Red Bull, McLaren or Red Bull, Mercedes? But it's 100% going to be Red Bull, McLaren if there's no crashes. There will be a few, but we'll see what happens. I think it's post-FP2. No, this one's post-FP3. Oh, ish. Yeah, I like what they put. Because literally it didn't happen. Yeah, no, they got the FP3 ones out really quickly this weekend. And I kind of have a feeling it's because, yeah, nothing happened. But then you got 115 million down here. What are they saying for 115 million? Yeah, so I think anyone above 115 million should be shooting for the Red Bull, McLaren, Verstappen builds. The issue is when you get to like 118 million, let's say, I'm about 119 million. That's when you start getting, maybe 120 it was. That's when you start getting thinking, but I could actually have just triple McLaren instead. And that would put me better for next weekend as well. Hulk or Yuki. So, actually, let me put a poll. Hey, Tommy, how you doing, man? Let me actually do a poll then. Because I believe this. Is Yuki Tsunoda the top cheap driver this week? Yes or no? For me, it's a yes, because he's starting from the back. Overtaking-wise, I'm really hoping that they will put him out in qualifying, probably for like 1 lap. But I want to see where Ricciardo puts it, because if Ricciardo's like 10th to 15th, I'm going to be excited, because 100% Yuki at a track like Spa will be able to get it up to near the top 10. And that's like 10, a minimum 10 plus points. And that's if he only gets it up to like 15th. Oh, sorry, Sahil. Yeah, give me a second. Where was it? Let's have a look. Help me out with the Sims current team: Lando, Yuki, Gasly, Nico, Zhou with McLaren and Mercedes. I have a budget of 117 million. What changes should I do? And is any minus worth it on transfers? So I can actually say with full faith this weekend, because it's not like some weekends there'll be times where I'll be a little bit careful because I'm not risking it, but this weekend I'm risking it for the minus 10, and I'm going into this knowing it's most likely going to turn into a minus 20 because it will be a minus 10 back into Netherlands. But my thinking is this team's going to probably get around 40 to 50 points minimum more than the team I would have had with Norris, Piastri, McLaren and Mercedes. And the way I'm thinking about that is because of the Red Bull points and the Verstappen points combined, it's going to be a great weekend for them. And if it's not, then I'm screwed. But that's my thinking at least. So yeah, did I actually answer your question? Oh yeah, my bad. So yeah, basically to go to your question, Sahil, if you want to take the minus 10, go over to the Verstappen, McLaren, Red Bull builds. But I would also say, if you can only afford with a minus 10 to get to Verstappen, McLaren, Red Bull, and you're sort of stuck with cheap drivers that don't look really good, then I would say just stick with the 2 premium driver builds. And in your case, because you've got Lando, Yuki, Gasly, Nico, Zhou, I would say keep Yuki 100%. You've got to get that Mercedes up to a Red Bull minimum. That's the constructors you've got to get done. Because Lando, McLaren, and Ferrari... sorry, my bad. Lando, McLaren, and Red Bull still isn't bad. And if you don't have to take a minus 10 to get to that, that's also a good shout. Because I could also do something like this. Which is something I have considered. Because, of course, if Lando still does well, it won't be too bad. And then I'm more set up for Netherlands. But I kind of want to risk it for the chocolate biscuit, you know? Right. Where was I? I'm thinking Max, Hulkenberg, Yuki, Albon, Sargent, Red Bull, McLaren. With 0.9 remaining, I like the idea of final fix with Piastri. Yeah, so here's my thoughts for that Piastri sort of strategy. If you have Piastri in your team, go for it. But if you're using all of your transfers to get over to Piastri and then on top of Verstappen, so I'm still taking a minus 10 to get over to Piastri on my team. And if I'm taking a minus 10 to then final fix him, I may as well just already be over at the Verstappen point, because I also don't think he's getting a 1 million increase. But if you've got Piastri in your team 100%, it looks really juicy. And hopefully Lipas joins us, because if he's in the chat, he'd probably put down below as well what he's thinking. Quickly as well, let me do all of this admin stuff, because, you know, I've got to do all of this. 838 of you in the league. Thank you very much all for joining. Let me put all of the codes into the chat for anyone who wants to join. I believe... How many Subaroonies are we on now? Because we were on 1,400 and 88 when I last checked. What are we on now? Yeah, we're on 1,488. Thank you very much for the support on the channel. And join the Discord. I'll put the... actually, I won't put the link. The link's in the last video I uploaded. But anyway, let's get back to the team, because I don't want to be away from it for too long. Okay. I've missed quite a few chats, but if I missed them, just put them down below again. Where should I start? Hulkenberg or Albon? I did put Albon above Hulkenberg in my tier list, and I'm going to stick with it. I like Albon this weekend. He had a great weekend last year here, F1 Fantasy wise, and 8.9 million. I think he's going to go up to 9.4 million, and it also gives you a bit of leeway with the teams. So if you put too much money into your teams right now, then getting back to 2 premium driver builds next weekend might be an issue, or getting to any other team, 2 premium drivers to a single premium driver next weekend is an issue. So I'd take Albon to save a bit of money, and because I actually do think he's going to get more points this weekend. I think he's going to be the dark horse of F1 Fantasy. I'm taking a -20 for the max teams. God damn. Oh, mate. That is a little bit risky. That's something that I would have to say I'm not advising. Because at that point, you'd probably take a -30 overall, because then getting back to the other team for the Dutch Grand Prix could be an issue. But again, we could see Verstappen doing really well at the Dutch GP, and if he does well there, he'll probably get driver of the day at his home Grand Prix, and that's maybe a weekend where you'd want him. So then again, maybe it's not a -20, maybe it is only a -10. I think I'm being a bit delusional, but you know, oh well. Right, Matthew asks, is Max Piastri, Joe Sargent Bottas with Mercedes and McLaren a good idea? So, for me this weekend, that isn't a bad team. That is actually a very good team, I will say. I just think, and here's the issue, Mercedes aren't going to get a lot of points this weekend. I do think Verstappen will catch up to them in the race. So I very much think having McLaren and Red Bull is the way to go. And from the looks of things, you could easily drop Piastri and get Red Bull. And that's also because I think going into this weekend, Norris looks a bit better than Piastri. So Norris, if it was Max and Norris, I'd be like, yeah, keep Mercedes and McLaren. But because it's Piastri, I think Piastri's only going to get around 20 to 30 points this weekend. And then with that gap, I think there'll be a bigger gap from Mercedes to Red Bull. Hey, First Cut, how you doing, man? Good to see you in the chat. Albon or... Max. Albon or Max. Gasly with Nico. Oh, I see. Max, Gasly with Nico, Joe. First Cut, I'm not sure if I understand what you're asking, mate. I have not seen anything saying the qualifying is going to be delayed, but I haven't been keeping an eye on it, to be fair. Should I play no negative this week or not? I would say don't use no negative, because I mentioned it in my summary as well that it's only raining in qualifying. So in the race, it's probably going to not be tame. There will be overtakes, but I don't think there'll be as many crashes, because in the rain, in Spa, there's always a lot of crashes. Dry, there'll still be a few, but no more than any other racetrack, realistically. And then you've also got to think, okay, no negative down the line at a sprint race weekend where it could be raining as well, would be a better option. Okay, yeah, let me get this poll down. So 100% everyone agrees that Yuki Tsunoda. That's what I wanted to say, by the way. I can't remember who I was telling this to, but that's why, because Yuki Tsunoda is probably going to get around 15 points. That's only a 15-point gap between him and Piastri in my expected points. The Zach expected points, you could call it. The Red Bull to Mercedes difference, I think, will be more than a 15-point gap. I think it'll be around 20 to 30 points. I could really see Red Bull getting around 70 to 80 points this weekend, and Mercedes around 50. Hey, KM, I have a budget of 106.5 million. Piastri, Russell, Hulkenberg, Tsunoda, Albon, Mercedes, and Haas. Haas for budget building. Any thoughts? So if you do really want a cheap constructor, I still wouldn't recommend ever having a cheap constructor. It would have to be V-Carb this weekend purely for Yuki Tsunoda. But for me, I would very much KM get rid of Russell, bring in McLaren. I know because it's harder to bring in with the. I know it's hard because you won't get as much budget, but a 0.3 million increase compared to a 0.5 million increase, and you get a lot more points. Actually, it's not above point. It's not a 0.3 million increase, is it? No. You'd probably lose out a 0.4 million, but when was the last time Haas went up in value? Yeah, it's quite hard for these teams to still go up as well. I think V-Carb, yeah, if you're trying to budget, V-Carb would be the best constructor if you're not worrying about points at all. Isn't Magnussen better than Hulkenberg just because Mag is bad at qualifying? 100%. Yeah, basically. Because if the dream scenario for anyone... Well, this is the dream scenario for F1 Fantasy, like, points-wise, is Tsunoda P20, Zhou P19, and I'll explain that in a second. Sargent P18, Magnussen P17. Because if Zhou starts any higher, he's getting overtaken by Yuki, that's 100%, and same with Sargent, and that's where you have issues if you've got Magnussen behind them as well. Oh, that's not good. I think I've taken a -40 over this whole season so far. Never again. Tried to chase the meta every weekend. Yeah, biblical. I think I've taken, I believe, two -10s this weekend. It was last weekend, and was it Monaco? I can't remember what other weekend it would have been. It might have been Imola, actually, because that was when the tides were changing with the teams. 2. And this could be my next -10. And that's just because I do like the team in front of me. So for anyone who could see, this is the team I could have with 0 free hits. But Verstappen looks so juicy. But I've got to think about this seriously, because if Norris gets 40 points, then Verstappen has to get 60 plus points to make it worthwhile me using my chip. My hit on him. And I think if Norris does win, he's getting driver of the day. And that is 45 points. And that's enough. So you could even see me sticking with Norris. But let's actually do a calculator as well. No, let's do another poll, actually. I prefer those. Oh yeah, I've missed quite a few messages, by the way. Does Final Fix driver have to be the same or lower price, or can I swap? So it's just about your budget. So you could change Norris out for Verstappen, Piastri out for Verstappen as well. You can change anyone out for Verstappen. It's got to be in your cost cap. Let me ask this in a poll, because damn bloody question. How many points? Yeah. Final fix. My bad. Biblical. If anyone's played fantasy football, it's one of their hits. I believe they've taken out on that, and because I've been talking about that quite a bit, because I've been making my team there, just in like my own life, I keep on bloody saying free hit because it starts with an F. But final fix. How many points will Verstappen get? And when I say let's say 30 to 30 or below. 30 to 40. 40 to 50. 40 to 60. Or 60 plus. Where's 60 plus? There we go. What were we all saying? Gasly or Albon as well? I'd go for... Oh, they actually both look pretty decent, but I'd go for Albon this weekend. Because if Verstappen's only getting to 40 to 60 points, it's not worth the -10. No problem, KM. Yeah. Keeping both Haas drivers and Yuki, Norris and Sargent, or Piastri and Albon. Yeah, I think Norris is going to be getting the win this weekend. So I do think it's Norris and Sargent. But it's Piastri and Albon still not bad, but 100% big. That's just because I think a lot of cheap drivers this weekend are going to get over 10 points. And I don't think Sargent's one of them. But Norris will get enough points to cover all of those losses from having Sargent instead of Albon. Right. Tsunoda, Verstappen, Ferrari, McLaren is the play this week. Oh, Sean. Okay. I understand the Tsunoda and Verstappen, but Ferrari, I get it. Let's have a look at free practice, okay? Because I get why some people are saying Ferrari, but when was the last time they had a good race? And I didn't actually release this video because I ran out of time. My everything you need to know video. But they're not bringing that many upgrades. So I can't see where they gained all of this time, especially on Mercedes and Red Bull. So be very cautious with all of that. Because yes, 4th and 5th is a good shout. They still won't get more points than Red Bull. Where'd they come in practice 1? Hello? Yeah, practice 1 though, to be fair. Practice 1 doesn't matter. I don't even know why I went even to look at practice 1. So I'm still very much adamant that Ferrari isn't the shout. But I'm adamant also that Mercedes aren't the shout. It's very much McLaren and Red Bull today. $100% no. Yeah, Sean, I 100% agree. I think if Mercedes do well in qualifying, expect them to drop down as well. But at a certain extent, if they do well in qualifying, then Red Bull will do worse in qualifying. And then Red Bull get more points in a race, and so many more than Ferrari, that it would be better to have a single premium driver around Red Bull and McLaren. Max and Mercedes or Piastri and Red Bull? Ooh, I would go with Marco. Now, I haven't actually fully explained why I think this way, but the reason Red Bull is better, so Marco, Piastri and Red Bull is the shout, because Red Bull this weekend will get all of Verstappen's points. So if you don't know how the constructors work, yeah, the constructors basically get your driver's points. Now, here's the thing. Verstappen normally, and constructor-wise, if someone gets driver of the day, you don't get that on your team. And that's normally the differential to what the constructors are. But if you get fastest lap, that gets added to your constructor's points. And that's the thinking. Because all of Verstappen's points will be added to Red Bull's points. And if he gets fastest lap, it will be added to Red Bull as well. So then that's why I think Red Bull are the better shout. Because then you also get Perez's points. And I think Perez will still get 20 plus points. And that's better than any cheap driver will get. So the Red Bull constructor is very much the better option. And when you also have Piastri on top of that, that's why. Because where did it go? Where did it go? Piastri will get enough points plus Red Bull. So Red Bull will get more points than Mercedes. Piastri will get 25 plus points. And Max will get around 40 points. And there'll be a bigger gap than 15 points from Red Bull to Mercedes. Where are we? Took a -10 for 2 premium drivers build last week. Is it worth it to take another -10 to bring in Red Bull and switch to Max? So Maslam, that's the issue I've got. And from the poll we've seen right here, I think I might be doing something quite silly this weekend. And, well, it's not silly, but I'm holding out for a Lando Norris driver of the day. If he gets driver of the day, it will not be worth bringing in Verstappen. And that's why, because I would then have taken a -10 in Hungary, in Spa, and going into Netherlands most likely. So this is probably what my team's going to look like. I'm probably not going to be having Verstappen, but I really wish I did. Probably not worth the -10, that's my thinking. Because with Verstappen's points, again, I can calculate it as well. We might do that in a bit. Triple McLaren or Norris, Red Bull, McLaren. Norris, Red Bull, McLaren, Mohammed. Tommy, Ricky asked V-Carb over Merc so I can get either Triple McLaren or Max and Oscar. So, yeah. I mean, it's a long shot, Ricky. And it's not actually the worst one I've heard because, of course, Sonoda will probably get around 15 points. Let's say Ricciardo gets 5 points. That's 20 points. The issue is I still think Mercedes will get around 40 to 50 points. And what's the difference when we think about it? So let's say there's a 20-point difference between V-Carb and Merc. I think then you're going to struggle to get an extra 20 points on that. Max and Oscar could do that for you. But I think it's way too risky. I mean, I'd love it, Ricky, if you came back to me and were like, yeah, it worked a treat. But you've also got to think, because it's not just Mercedes that you've got to V-Carb over. If you have McLaren and V-Carb, you've also got to be thinking about the teams that would have McLaren and Red Bull. And that won't be a 20-point gap. That will be like a 50-point gap. If you can't afford MCL and Red Bull, who would you recommend? If you can't afford McLaren and Red Bull, McLaren is the safe option. I wouldn't even deal with Red Bull. And that's where you move over to what Ricky was talking about. You could either have Mercedes, or if you really want to risk it for a chocolate biscuit, you go RB and then use 2 better premium drivers. That's the shout. But in most of these teams, my bad, I don't know why I clicked off of it. In most of these teams, Norris or Verstappen is going to be your 2 times driver. And then if you have a 2 premium driver build, it has to be with Piastri, none of the Mercedes drivers. But that's the way it will be going this weekend. Let me get the team back up. Yeah, Tommy, right. I've got 118.7 million. I have muted that, haven't I? Yes, I have. Just checking. I'm so do. Norris, Piastri, Sergeant Joe, Bottas, McLaren, and Mercedes. Oh, so Tommy, that's the thing. You've got free transfers, and you have you have the exact same team I would have had. So for you, Tommy, I would seriously recommend doing the final fix opportunity, where you get rid of Norris, drop him down to a Tsunoda, and then that's your one transfer. Then you have Piastri on 2 times. You use him in qualifying. Then you final fix over to Verstappen. You keep Piastri in. Then you have free hits, free transfers to go into Netherlands, where you bring Tsunoda back out, bring in Norris, and then hopefully you could have gained a 1 million increase from Piastri, a 0.5 million increase from Tsunoda, plus all the points that Verstappen gives you. Oh, and you used the second transfer, my bad, to bring in Red Bull. That's what I meant to say. So it would actually be McLaren and Red Bull in your team, Tommy. And then you get all of these points combined, and you have free transfers to then get rid of Red Bull next week and Tsunoda and bring back Norris and Mercedes like nothing ever happened. So you are in a perfect position to do what I want because you've got free transfers. So I'd 100% go with that. But yeah, so the poll ends with most people believing Verstappen gets around 40 to 60 points. Now, for me, that doesn't add up enough, which is a bit of an issue. So I do think I agree with you guys that I can't take the -10 again to get to Verstappen. It just doesn't add up because it will become a -20 going into the Netherlands Grand Prix. Hey Deserts, how you doing, man? I can see you live properly. 4 races. Oh, how fair play, man. Yeah, glad to see you in the chat. I'm at Red Bull, Mercedes, Norris, Russell, Albon. What are you thinking? Thinking of McLaren plus Red Bull plus Max and a -10? Yeah, so if you sound like you're in a similar position to me, and you've just got to think to yourself, is it worth the -10 to bring in Max? Because if you don't believe so, because remember, you're probably going to have to take another -10 to get out of Verstappen again. So, will Verstappen... Yeah, that's another good poll, actually. Will Verstappen get more... will Verstappen get more than a 20-point gap to Norris? Because that's the issue. That's when it becomes worthwhile to take a -10 for this. Because you have to -10 this weekend and then -10 the next weekend to get him out. So that's what I'm thinking, Desert. So if you can't afford to do that, I'd go with getting rid of Mercedes, bringing in McLaren and Red Bull, getting in Norris, and changing Russell to Tsunoda, which basically exactly what I'm doing. Not basically, by the way, it is what I'm doing, bar Bottas and Zhou switched around. What time you going for? I normally go till qualifying. So qualifying starts in 50 minutes. I will be gone in about 40 minutes. So getting all your questions. I normally do my team, so I'll be doing all of my changes in about half an hour, and then I go over. We're so close to running Red Bull, McLaren with Norris and Piastri, but with cheaper bottom drivers. Oh, mate, yeah, biblical. If you can get to that eventually, though. Oh, but I say eventually, but most weekends it is McLaren and Mercedes. Oh, that would have been so juicy, man. How much money does it cost, actually, to have Norris and Piastri? So, let's say you have the cheap drivers. I would need an extra, 5.6 million I would need. So I believe I've got about 118.8 million. You'd need about 124-ish million in the tank, which is quite a bit. 124, 125 million. I know some people do, though, so I'm going to be so jealous seeing some people's teams with Norris and Piastri with McLaren and Red Bull. Lando to Max or save the transfer? So, right, yeah, that's the thing. If you can do it with your free transfers, then don't worry about the -20, because that's the only issue I've got. If you if you take a minus 10 or less, it's worth it. Like, I mean minus 10 over Spa and Netherlands. But for a lot of people like me, you'd have to take a minus 10 now and then a minus 10 in Netherlands, and that minus 20 isn't enough of a gap we're expecting Verstappen to have on Norris, so it doesn't make sense to take the minus 10 now, because then if I don't take the minus 10 here, I don't actually have to take any minuses, and that's when it comes a little bit like, oh, okay, we've got some thinking to do. But I think my thinking has been made up, and very much I'm going back to a team I basically had earlier this season. It feels weird. It feels like it's like, what team would I have had this? I probably would have had this around, not Miami, but like close to that race. Yeah, not China, not Japan. Yeah, around that time. Thanks, man. Definitely ready for some high-speed Eau Rouge Apex camera shots. Yeah, I know. I do love Spa. I can't remember where I put it on my my rankings of the tracks, but it was very high up. It's such an iconic track, man. Oh, I love it. Upgrade Sargent to Albon or Gasly to Magnussen. So Ferrari, I would actually say neither of them. Aha, caught you off guard. No, so if you don't have Tsunoda in your team, I would bring him in instead of... so I would do Gasly to Tsunoda. But if you already have Tsunoda in your team, then I would do Sargent to Albon. Because there's more of a chance that Gasly and Albon get the 0.5 million increases as well, which would be good for your team. Hey Zach, I would have to sacrifice Mag for Sarge to change Mercedes to Red Bull. Should I? Yes, I actually do believe, because Magnussen, maximum points he's going to get this weekend is 15 points. And Sargent will probably get 0 points, so let's call it the 15-point gap. And I do generally believe, again, right, so I'll do another poll. So people don't believe that Verstappen will get more than 20 points than Norris. I actually agree as well. So it's not worth taking it if you have to take the minus 10 this weekend and the minus 10 next weekend. But this is the other question, because I believe so as I believe there will be a bigger gap. Will Red Bull score more? Yes, I should mention, if you do have wildcard, because I saw Ben while I was looking at that, if you have wildcard, then don't worry about anything I've said. Then you can take the minus 10 and wildcard back to the original team. Will Red Bull score more than... Will Red Bull have Magnussen or Albon? Magnussen, Alexis. Will Red Bull have more than a 15-point gap to Mercedes? Hey, FBL veteran, good to see you in the chat. I believe so, and that's why I believe putting down from a Magnussen to a Sargent or a Piastri to a Tsunoda would be beneficial. But let's see what happens. Yeah, lads, yeah. Right, triple McLaren and Mercedes, or Norris, Red Bull, McLaren, Hulkenberg, Magnussen, Ocon. Mohammed, I would go with the Norris and the Red Bull, but here's the thing. Try to get in Tsunoda. Even if you have to drop Magnussen, I would go with Tsunoda instead. But yes, thank you very much. We're out of 1,490 subs now. Thank you very much. We're almost at 1.5k. It's very good. Very exciting times. And it's not a 1.5k special or something, but I'm not going to give any... I'll give a few hints, but I won't give any spoilers. Won't give any spoilers to what the video will be, but on Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday, I generally have to say I've got a really exciting video out. Very exciting. It's going to be one of my longer videos on the channel. It's going to be about an hour and 20, an hour and a half. But I was lucky enough to meet with someone. Let's just say that. But very exciting person, and I know everyone will love it on the channel. But no more spoilers than that. So get excited for that, because they had some great stories. Have you started monetization? Yes, I have actually. I can actually tell you guys. From the channel where it is now, normally gets around £60 to £100 a month. Which, hey, I'll happily take. It's YouTube money, which I thought when I started this... nowhere. I started this 3 or 4 years ago. It's still crazy to me that you can make actual money off of this stuff. Mental. But how will the 10 place? Oh yeah, my bad. FPL veteran. Yes, Albon or Hulkenberg. It's close, but I still prefer Albon. But Albon, Hulkenberg, they're both very good options for me. Albon though. I've gone triple McLaren, Zach, while we were going Red Bull. So our thinking is veteran that Mercedes haven't looked actually fantastic. So like we put on the poll, we agree that Red Bull are probably going to get more than a 15-point gap. And we also believe from Tsunoda starting at the back, he's going to get around 10 to 15 points, and Piastri will only get 30 points maximum. So then it all sort of lines up for Red Bull and Tsunoda actually getting more points than Piastri and Mercedes. And then that's why having Norris, McLaren, Red Bull would be a better option. But it is very much, it's going to be close, like all weekends. But I think this is the way to go. I generally do think it is. It's a shame that I can't change any of my cheap drivers, but you know, hey, it is what it actually. Where did Bottas come from? Oh right, yeah. I was gonna say I was getting scared for a second. I was like, I don't remember having Bottas. Where is he? Yuki Tsunoda. Is it worth the max wildcard this week or save it later? So, Sav, what I would actually do, is not wildcard this weekend, because that's when you only have 2 free transfers. Then you have to take the minus 10 next weekend. But I would actually take the minus 10 this weekend to get to the Verstappen team. Actually, no, it's the exact same thing. You can wildcard if you want to the Verstappen team. But be prepared to take a minus 10 to be going back to the Netherlands team. But you could also take a minus 10 this weekend and then wildcard afterwards. Like I was saying, if you've got the wildcard ready, this would be a great time to use it. Will they have mini leagues again? It's my only chance to win prizes this year. Hey, yo, Ash, I'm pretty sure they're never going to do a mini league again. After what happened with the Zhou one, where everyone brought in basically the same teams for Limitless. And then about what? How many people won that mini league? It was loads of people. And apparently they were all going to get a hat signed by Joe. So where's all of our hats? Gasly versus Albon. Albon. Do you think Red Bull Constructor or Verstappen is better? So I've mentioned this before, but I'll just quickly summarise it. Red Bull as a Constructor better because I think Verstappen could get fastest lap and points that all contribute to the Red Bull Constructor. Plus Perez getting 20 plus points. It should be a good time. Rain is clearing up. 40 minutes left. Lock your teams in. Yes. Listen to your brain stems, everyone. Hey. Yeah, listen to your brains, everyone, I guess. Oh, my bad, first cut. Max, Albon, Nico, Zhou, Yuki plus McLaren, Mercedes, or Lando. Yes, I would go with Lando, Zhou, Albon, Yuki, Nico, and Red Bull, McLaren, first cut. Sorry for missing your inquiry. Interesting. Oh, okay. Gonna be decent. I actually fancy Ocon to have a good weekend. Good record here and drive score for next season. You know what? I haven't actually talked about that as well. Ocon to Haas. Fair play to the geezer, but I still think Ocon's a decent driver, and he gets way too much hate for like what he actually does. Yeah, he's a little bit sloppy from time to time, but you could say the same thing about Verstappen. I know complete different drivers, and Verstappen is a lot better, but Ocon I think gets a bit too much stick. Drivers who actually Stroll gets loads as well. Right, I'm switching Lando and Tsunoda to Max unloading. I think Max is back on form. See, you have to now really hope that Max wins it though. Because I'm telling you, even if Verstappen gets up to P3, potentially even P2, I don't think he gets driver of the day just because people will be like, yay, Lando win, or yay, Piastri win. He has to be getting that. Has to. Now, I've got to be hopeful that Norris gets driver of the day as well. So I'm hoping that Verstappen only gets up to P3, P4. But also, I've got to hope that he does okay because I've got Red Bull as a Constructor. It's going to get interesting, though. Max is better because of the 2 times. You get way more than having Red Bull Racing. Not risk of Perez messing up. So, that's the thing, though. It's again, all relative, Asim. Because, yes, you got the 2 times. But we did a poll on this recently. If Norris and Verstappen get similar points with the 2 times, then the outcome will be that having Red Bull as a Constructor was a better choice than Mercedes. And even if Verstappen gets 10 points better than Norris, so that's a 20-point gap. I think there'll even be more of an. I think there'll be a 20-point gap minimum to Red Bull and Mercedes. So that's where my thinking of Red Bull being the better as a constructor works out. It's all just relative. Aren't we scared of Perez binning it? Oh, of course. I'm always scared of him binning it, but I'm scared of Sargent binning it all the time as well. It's one of those things where you just have to hope for the best, and it is what it is. If Perez bins it, but I actually don't think for once he's going to bin it, because I actually think he'll be starting in the top 6, and with no one around him, hopefully, I think he'll be alright. What do you think of Norris, Piastri, Tsunoda, Sargent, Hülkenberg, Mercedes, and McLaren? Yeah, no, Anna, that is still a great team, because that's the team I originally wanted to get to this weekend. I just think with the way things have gone, like unprecedented things that we couldn't have known. Yuki Tsunoda, last weekend, I wouldn't have known he would be starting at the back of the grid. Verstappen's 10-place grid penalty, I wouldn't have known that last weekend when thinking about the teams as well. We knew it was rumoured, but we didn't know for sure. But now all of these things are happening. Red Bull and Tsunoda look so juicy as a pairing to have in your team that I think it just outperforms the triple McLaren's form. Can you do a quick summary in the end? Yeah, don't worry. I'll do a quick summary in about 15 minutes. Because normally, Simon, you know how it works with my ones. I've seen you in these lives all the time. Yeah, I'll lock in my team. I'll answer the final questions, then do a summary. But that will be all in about 15 minutes. Is it worth taking a -10 for Sargent to Hülkenberg? So no, with cheap drivers, never worth taking a -10, because even with Yuki, and I've been saying he's a juicy asset to have. I love the word juicy. He will get around 15 points. Now, that means that... let's say Hülkenberg as well, because I don't actually think Hülkenberg will get more than 15 points. Let's say Hülkenberg gets 10 points, Sargent gets 0 points, then you're breaking even with that -10. Now, you could get a 0.5 million... But I also think Sargent's due a decent race. I mean, surely he can't drop down below 5 million. I mean, if I see he's on 4.9 million, I'm going to start flipping stuff, because he's the GOAT. He should be valued at 40 million. He should be untouchable at this point. He wins every single race, and F1 Fantasy always seems to forget that. Will Tsunoda even try to qualify is the issue. So, yes, I did hear about this. It's Avery. But my thinking was, and who was it? Which of the presenters was it in FP3 that I was listening to? What was his name? I can't remember who it was. But it was one of the presenters was like, Tsunoda will set a lap like Gasly did, knowing that he'll start at the back of the grid. Because if you don't set a lap, you still have to go to the stewards. And I don't think he wants to deal with all of that. So he'll set a lap. Won't be a fast lap. He'll probably be P20 and then just sack it off and be like, okay, cool, job done. Good stuff. That's the hope, at least. Otherwise, we're all taking a -5. I'm just scared that Max's temper will get out of hand and crash his car. Yeah, I mean, we haven't actually spoken about that, because that's exactly what happened in Hungary. But I'm not too worried about that, because I think he knows this weekend that it's more of a long shot. So, like in Hungary, it was just because he was having a bad race. He wasn't where he wanted to be, and it wasn't because of a grid penalty or anything like that. This weekend, he knows, hey, I've got to just make up for the most of it. We'll see what happens. I hope Perez will be in the Q3. Where was that? Where is it? I've lost it. Too many questions. Oh, here we go, yeah. There we go. I can't remember where I was. My bad. Right, I could go for Verstappen, Hülkenberg, Albon, Red Bull, and McLaren, but no Tsunoda. Do you think this is a mistake? Yeah, not bringing in Tsunoda, I think, is a mistake. But it's the sort of thing where it's like, if you can't physically have him in your team, it's not a -10 offence to use. Oh, my bad, Michelle. where is your question? Should I keep Gasly? Yeah, there's loads of questions. So yeah, just put your question down if I miss it. Should I keep Gasly? My team is Piastri, Hulkenberg, Magnussen, Gasly, Sargent, McLaren, and Ferrari. So what I would do is, in your case, I know I've been slating Mercedes, but Ferrari and Mercedes actually this weekend I think will be pretty close on points. So that's not too much of an issue. I think in your case, for me, I still think Norris will be getting the 2 times over Piastri. So I would recommend Norris or Verstappen. And both of those ways, you could get it by either dropping Gasly down to a Zhou if you want Norris. Or you could even drop Gasly and Magnussen and then bring in Verstappen if you've got free transfers. But if not, you could also do Magnussen down to Zhou and then I believe... No, you wouldn't have enough points. So yeah, very much. I'd go with Norris instead of Piastri and get rid of Gasly to a Zhou to get the money for that. In other words, it's Tsunoda a must. Yeah, Tsunoda 100% is a must-have. And yeah, most people agree that it'll be more than a 15-point gap to Mercedes. I agree as well. I do think Tsunoda is a must this weekend in cheap driver-wise, but not a -10 must. Just a free transfer. If you've got a free transfer, go for it. If you've got like free transfers, you've used 2, and you were going to save it, bring in Tsunoda instead. Because I think it's going to be a great weekend for him to get 0.5 million. Of course, if he crashes out, fair play. I can't do much about that. And I'll just have to be like, games to game. There's nothing much. You generally can't do anything about that at that point. Bottas and Zhou versus Tsunoda and Sargent. Tsunoda and Sargent, Christopher, I'd 100% go with. So if you had the budget, would you bring in Yuki/Red Bull, then final fix Piastri to Max? Yeah, so I've talked about this, Jeffrey. So in a similar way, so I didn't have a Piastri in my team just end of. But if you've got Piastri in your team, the final fix strategy with rolling an extra transfer is the way to go. 100%, because then you get the best of both worlds with Max's race results, and qualifying doesn't matter too much with getting Piastri's one, and you get Yuki and you get Red Bull, which look like the best cheap driver and the second/first best constructor. When his car is reliable, Gasly gets you good points. Yeah, so that's the issue. It's just when his car is reliable. I know, how many times can he get struck by lightning? Apparently it gets struck twice, Gasly, because he got 2 DNFs in a row, basically. Which was very unlucky. Well, 1 DNF, 1 DNS. He didn't even start. And then, can you do a video reviewing all the upcoming tracks with key info like 2 premium drivers, overtakes? Yeah, I mean, honestly, first cut, I 100% can, because in the summer break, I'll still try to have about like 2 to 3 videos a week. And it's 4 weeks of basically just no F1, isn't it? So I'll try to get out stuff like that. But over the summer break, do be prepared. It will be more like F1 related stuff, but I want to do a mid-season F1 fantasy review going over where we made mistakes. Like you said, the trends coming up for the next weekends. What the strategy is. I want to do another chip strategy guide just to clear it up for anyone, because a lot of people will have used them some now. And then an F1 fantasy for Netherlands. But then everything else will probably be just F1 video related videos. Right. Yes, it was Chandok. Yes, James, it was Chandok in FP3. Yes, that was him. Yeah. Yeah. Mickey. I know. Verstappen penalty. Norris driver of the day hopes. Mercedes not looking too good. Tsunoda starting at the back of the grid. A lot of things happened which resulted in this monstrosity that if I had told you last weekend I was going for, people would have looked at me like I'd gone crazy. Zach, I have no money for Norris or Max single driver build. Just with Norris, I can have better secondary driver, Tsunoda. What's the move? Yeah, I would go with Norris and Tsunoda, 100%. So what should I do right now? Should I keep him or not? I wouldn't, Michelle. I would go with, what did I say? I said, yeah, get rid of Gasly down to Zhou and bring in Norris over Piastri. Bottas and Zhou, or, oh no, I've answered that. My bad. Let me get down to the lower bit. Max or Lando. So, you're right, yeah. So for anyone who's weirded out why I haven't picked Verstappen, we spoke about this a little bit, and that's the thing. Lost my train of thought. Lost me bloody train of thought. Max and Norris. Yeah, my bad. So, if I take Verstappen, I take a -10 this weekend. That's the issue. Because then again, in Netherlands, I also have to take a -10 to get back to what's most likely going to be the case, the meta of the 2 premium driver builds. Because that race will most likely be a bit more normal, I guess, with probably the Mercedes looking a bit better again. We don't know what's going to happen. But that's a -20 overall. And we agreed that we don't think Verstappen's going to get more than 20 points over Norris this weekend. So then it's the case of, well, then a -20 isn't worth it. So then bringing in a third free transfer, which I don't have, to bring Norris up to a Verstappen doesn't work out for my team. But if you can afford to bring Verstappen over Norris in, I would do that. What is the surprise on... So, I can give you a little teaser, but basically, I had... it's an hour, 20 hour, 30 minute that's going to be... I was talking to someone who basically has worked in F1. And they were telling a lot of stories and their opinions on a lot of things. But that's all I'm giving you. That's all I'm giving you. You'll have to wait and see who it is. But I'm 100% sure you're all going to love the video, man. I was so happy that they agreed to do it. Very nice person as well. Very nice. But you'll have to wait and find out who it is. Should I use no negative? I would recommend not using no negative this weekend. Purely because it's not going to be raining on the actual Sunday race. If you weren't taking a -10, would you take Verstappen over Norris? Yeah, Syndicate, yeah, I would. 100%. If you don't need to take a -10 to get up to Norris, 100%, then I would. It's just because that -10 then leads to another -10 in Netherlands, and then you sort of spiral out of control. Are you going to final fix to Verstappen? That's the thing. Look what he has. You could be seeing me final fixing to Verstappen, but that's the thing. It has to be worth it. I won't be live streaming tomorrow. Actually, I might be live streaming if I've got time. I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow, but you very much could see me final fixing to Verstappen. I mean, I wouldn't be getting a budget, but you could see why I'd want to. But for now, my team going into it, my team that will be locked, will have Norris. But you could easily see me final fixing to the Verstappen. Why are you keeping 6 million in the bank instead of better C-tier drivers? Because it all costs -10. And with cheap drivers, -10s aren't really useful. So, like, my team right now, as you can see, 2 out of the 2. If I then went, okay, let's get rid of Logie Bear and bring in the likes of, let's say, Esti Bestie, that's when we're getting a -10. And I don't think Esteban's... It's a risk thinking that Esteban's going to get more than 10 points more than Sargent. Easily could, but it's a risk that I'm not willing to take. Hulkenberg or Gasly in the long term? Hulkenberg. I'm very confused here. Piastri finished P2 on all free practice sessions, whereas Tsunoda finished P16, P15 and P20. So why not go Norris and Piastri? Because Tsunoda's starting at the back, and at Spa there was 72 overtakes last season there. Overtakes happen, and even if Tsunoda gets up to P15, yeah, then he will get 5 overtake points, 5 position gain points, around 10 points. That's if he gets only up to P15. I think he could get even further up. And then you've got to think of, okay, then I could have had Piastri instead. He'll probably get, let's say he gets 30 points. That's a 20-point gap. But then with Red Bull and Verstappen doing what they're doing, you could see more of a 20-point gap from Mercedes to Red Bull, which is what I think will happen. And that's the reasoning for Tsunoda over Piastri for now, in that sort of area. Ferrari versus Mercedes. Mercedes, just because over the long run, I think they're the ones to choose. And if you start messing about bringing in Ferrari and Verstappen, then you're very far away from the meta, and you could be taking like a -20 to get back to a normal team. If I change Mercedes to Red Bull by getting rid of Piastri, I still have 18.4 left. Really? How does that happen? I mean, what was your team? I believe you didn't have Norris, didn't you? If you increased to a Verstappen or a Norris with that extra money, then you'd be fine. Then it'd be worth it. What is the best possible team for 117.8 million? Honestly, no, you're not looking right at it right now. Let me get Apple Fantasy Tools up. Let's see if I agree with them, because I haven't actually done a calculation for anyone yet. Agree, no minus 10 for the points, but you get budget gain overall if you replace Surge. Yeah, I know, but I don't think that budget's happening this weekend, because in my eyes, I don't see Piastri winning, and I see Verstappen getting over 50 points. So in both situations, that doesn't get Piastri any more than a point for a million increase, which isn't worth it. So, well, yeah, I actually kind of agree with the team they're giving out here. Red Bull, McLaren, 100% the must. Verstappen, true, but... And, oh, you think so, Nuno? So, I think Verstappen's the safer option, because with how Norris has been so far, he's a little bit off. But I do understand why, because he's got to get through the whole field. But for me, I do think it's all about not taking that minus 10. And if then you can final fix Norris or Piastri would be the better one. But Norris to a Verstappen for the actual race, do that. Because then you can get back to your other teams without the minus 10, and you get the best of the Verstappen team and the Norris teams for the next weekends. Gasly or Hulkenberg to Albon for minus 10, worth it. No. If you want to change your cheap drivers, you have to have a free one. If it costs a minus 10, it's not worth it with the cheap drivers. Hulkenberg or Ocon, Hulkenberg, play no negative this week. I wouldn't recommend it. How's Ferrari looking this weekend? So they're looking all right, I will admit. But when I say all right, they're going to get around 40 to 50 points. 50 plus points. They're going to get less than 60 points if we're pushing it to 60 points. But I don't think they're going to get more than that. Because I think they'll come around 4th to 7th. And that will be around 40 to 50 points. And that's not good enough when Red Bull, from the looks of things, will be getting around 60 to 80 points. And Mercedes will probably get similar points as well. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. So they could get it. But from the looks of things, that's why we've got to keep an eye, everyone here. That's why we've got to keep an eye on Verstappen. Because let's say Verstappen qualifies P4, P5. That's where you have an issue where he could actually still make his way through the field. But will he get fastest lap? Like Nuno said, potentially not. But if he has that gap, then he could. So it's 50-50 whether he'll get or not fastest lap. He will or he won't. But I still think Verstappen's in the best scenario to get fastest lap. From what FP2 results have looked like, and from what we showed earlier, with fastest lap tend to going to the person who's having a recovery drive, because they just have more clean air and they have a chance to pit later on in the race because they've got nothing else to lose. Hello Zach, I have Norris, Russell, Zhou, Sargent, Hulkenberg, Mercedes, McLaren with 1.2 million and 2 swaps. Any suggestions? So, Nicolaus, for you could either go straight to the triple McLaren with Norris, Piastri, dropping Hulkenberg down to a Bottas to get the money in to do that. That's your 2 swaps. Or you could do something similar to me, where you drop Russell to a Sonoda and bring in Red Bull over Mercedes. Both are good options. I'd recommend dropping Russell and getting Red Bull, though, in. Would you look to bring in if you didn't have a minus 10? Yes, 100%. If I did not have the minus 10, Verstappen will be coming into my team. But don't worry, everyone, because that's what I'm trying to say as well. You'll see with my team that the race, I will have Verstappen in the race, because I'll probably final fix him over. But if Verstappen qualifies anything worse than P6, I probably won't actually be final fixing him over, because that's when you could be seeing Norris getting the fastest lap anyway. So then it doesn't really matter too much, because then Verstappen won't get too many points. Well, I say too many. He'll still get around 40 to 50 points. Thoughts on doing final fix Piastri to Verstappen? Yeah, so that's the better option, by the way. So a lot of people's teams will actually have Piastri instead of Norris. I just didn't have Piastri in my team already. And then you could get the budget increase from Piastri, which would be better. And you get the Verstappen points as well. That would be the better option. I'm only doing the Norris to the Verstappen because it keeps me with the 2 free transfers. Keeps me going back to my normal team next weekend with Piastri and Mercedes. And then I'm good. I'm good to go with no minuses taken. It's a good final fix. That's the thinking. With free transfers, is Verstappen a no-brainer over Norris? Right now, yes. 100%. I say right now, we've got 15 minutes till the race, so 100% yes. But anyway, everyone, I'm not leaving just yet. Yeah, good option with the final fix, 100%. It's just about not taking that -10 and thinking smart about it, you know, because this final fix, it might sound crazy. Well, it doesn't actually, because theoretically, this final fix is already 20 plus points than I would have got, because you get the Verstappen points, which would have taken me a -10 to get to. And then you'd get the -10 knocked off as well, going back to the triple McLaren build in Netherlands. And that's what I was saying. So this is my team going into it. It's going to be confirmed. Bim, bam, boom. You will see, though, and I will make a post on Twitter, me final fixing over to Verstappen if I do it. So watch out for that, because it most likely will be the case. But if Verstappen has a bad qualifying, you'll probably see me not doing it, because then he'll probably won't get more than 7th, and Norris will probably get driver of the day on fastest lap. Tommy, thank you so much for the $10, my dude. I love you so much, man. What a guy. What a bloody geezer. I have 118.7 million, free transfers, Norris, Piastri, Zhou, Bottas, Sargent, Merc, and McLaren. What's your shout? So you are in a very similar position to me, but in a better way. So what I would do is get rid of Norris. I know, crazy bloody times, and you go the full final fix mode. So Norris down, Mercedes up to Red Bull, Norris down to Tsunoda, Mercedes up to McLaren. Mercedes up to Red Bull. Piastri stays in your team. You get his budget. You then final fix over. Oh, no. Yeah, you're fine. Then final fix over to Verstappen. Now, that's if you want to roll a transfer. You could also just get rid of Norris down to Tsunoda, Piastri up to Verstappen, and Mercedes to Red Bull. But then you have a few complications going into next weekend. So I think the final fix is the better option. Hey Yannick, how's it going? It's going good. But everyone, I will now... Best C-tier driver has to be Tsunoda and then Magnussen. And then it's between Albon and Hulkenberg for 3rd place. So everyone, let's just do a quick summary of what the strategies are, okay? Let's get up Limitless. Yeah, bear in mind, remember, you can use it if you don't apply it. So let's go over to the 2 premium driver teams. So if you have a team, let's say, that looks like this. I'm just going to use the cheap drivers to show Nicolaus. He's starting from the back of the grid. He's starting P20, 100%. That's why. That's my special power. Let's say you have the 2 premium drivers with Mercedes and McLaren. Now, you're already in a good position, and you could just stick with a team like this. Boom, bam, you're good to go. That's fine. But with Red Bull's pace and Tsunoda looking good, you could also, if you've got 2 free transfers, go like this. Up to Red Bull. Bring in Tsunoda, starting from the back of the grid with Red Bull, Tsunoda, and Verstappen with the 10th place grid penalty. And then you got Piastri with the ×2. But you don't actually keep Piastri. You then final fix Piastri to Verstappen when the race starts. And that's the strategy if you have Norris and Piastri in a team, because then you take no minuses and then you go into Netherlands with still a good team. Now, if you had a similar team to me, where you started off with McLaren and Mercedes, and you only had enough money for Norris and Russell, then Mercedes don't look too good, so you would do something like this. Now, the final fix for this team isn't actually 100% needed, but you would 100% bring in Red Bull, and then you'd bring in Tsunoda again. So the main gist of things is bring in Red Bull and Tsunoda, but you would then 2 times Norris, and if you don't think Norris is going to get more points to Verstappen, then that's when you final fix over again. You're keeping it, so you only do 2 free transfers, so you don't take the -10, and it keeps you ready for Netherlands, where you don't take another -10. To Verstappen, final fix, you're good to go again. Then, here we go. Bim, bam, boom. If you only have a single premium driver anyway, because you can't afford those big teams, then that is when you just focus on bringing in McLaren, Red Bull, Verstappen for points. But if you want to budget build, and this is a crazy team, but if you really want to budget build, then you could go for something like this. That's if you want to budget build, because you could get a Piastri 1 million increase, Red Bull RB V-Carb up 0.5 million, and then you'd bring in the best cheaper drivers, which of course would be Kelly, Mag, Sonoda, Albon. And those are basically all the strategies you can play with this weekend. So I hope that summary helps you out. I'll answer a few more questions, but then I have to go because I've got to get ready for the qualifying. Right. No problem, Yannick. I have Piastri and Russell. Don't have enough money for Norris. So if you go with the Red Bull sort of move, then think about it that way. Why Sonoda? He's so far behind, and are they really that fast? So it's not even about them being really that fast. It's just Sonoda will get up to minimum P15 starting P20 because he's faster than the Saubers and he's faster than the Williams. And then that's when Mercedes versus Ferrari, I still think Mercedes will do better because it's going to be a wet qualifying. Even if Mercedes drop down a bit in the race, they'll still outperform Ferrari. And we've seen Ferrari don't like the rain, so I still go with Mercedes over Ferrari. Hey, Gustavo, how are you doing? Right, so help me out a bit, no problem. I have Norris, double Haas, double Williams with McLaren and Red Bull. Thoughts? Honestly, decent team. I would try to get in Sonoda, so potentially get rid of... you could potentially drop Albon down to the likes of Zhou and then increase Hulkenberg to a Sonoda. That's all my thoughts for you though. McLaren and Red Bull look good. Norris look good as well. If you have an extra bit of money, final fix Norris to Verstappen. Hulkenberg or Albon. I still think Albon. I just have like this gut instinct that Albon's going to do better this weekend. And then finally Alvaro. I have McLaren and Mercedes with Norris. Final fix or wildcard. If you have wildcard, I would still final fix because wildcard you would still have to take a -10 this weekend or next weekend to get to the better team. Whereas if you final fix, you don't have to worry about any -10s. But then McLaren and Mercedes with Norris, Gasly, Hulkenberg, Magnussen, and Albon with free transfers. Again, Alvaro, I would recommend getting rid of Mercedes, bringing in Red Bull. Gasly down to a Zhou or a Sargent to get the money to do that. And then you could, because you've got the free transfers, if, again, you have enough money, Norris to Verstappen. But if it takes up all of your free transfers, then don't worry too much about it. Ocon's an option. Yeah, he's all right. But again, 11 million, he's not the best. Magnussen or Sonoda, I would go with Sonoda. Purely because starting from last, Magnussen, if he starts P15, he did have a decent race in Hungary, but he won't have... It's harder to do better there, whereas when you start P20 with Sonoda, he physically can't lose any positions in the race, so he can't get any negatives in the race, and he can only get overtake points and positions gained, so it's like a no-brainer to bring him in. But anyway, I'm sorry if anyone has any more questions, because I have to go and get ready. If you want any more streams, I believe FanAmp are probably still streaming right now, and Rain Fantasy still is streaming. Quickly, I'll put in the league code for anyone who wants to join it. We have 840 people in it at the minute. Thank you very much for joining. Follow me on Twitter as well, because that's where I'll put my updated teams as well, because I need to go put that on there. And the Discord as well. It's in the last video where all of us talk about it there. He won't want to because he has to set a lap because otherwise he gets called to the stewards. So I think there'll be in a lot of stress if he does. But my bad, yeah, Anna. So Norris, Sonoda, Piastri, Sargent, Hulkenberg, Mercedes, McLaren. I can't go with Red Bull, but would have to change Piastri, and I don't know who's worth. I would go for it, Anna, because then you've got a pretty decent week. You've got decent enough transfers ready for Netherlands, and Red Bull look really good. So I would go with that. Change Piastri to a Sonoda, and you're good to... Actually, you've already got Sonoda, so change it to anyone else like Albon. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. What else do I need to put in there? I don't think I need to do anything. Thank you all so much for the support on the channel, and I'll see you all later. Hopefully, qualifying goes well for all of your teams, and yeah, I'll see you all for the debrief on Monday morning. Well, not Monday morning, but the Monday. Bye-bye.